My mother-in-law secretly did a DNA test on my 3 children and called me trash when she discovered that the oldest was not my husband's. But she should have waited to know the truth. I'm Laura, I'm 43 years old and I've been married to Davis, who's 46, for 23 years. We have 3 children, Angie, 17 years old, Jack, 15 years old, and Sammy, 8 years old. 2 nights ago, my mother-in-law, Karen, 68 years old, invited us over for dinner only to drop a bomb that has shattered the peace of our family. Davis and I struggled for years to have our first child. We met in college, married at 22, and started trying right away. Month after month, nothing happened. After 3 years, we went to a fertility specialist who diagnosed me with polycystic ovary syndrome. The doctor prescribed medication to help me ovulate regularly. At that time, in vitro fertilization wasn't an option for us. We were both working entry-level jobs and didn't have that kind of money. The medication seemed to work. My cycles became more regular, and the doctor advised us to track my ovulation and schedule our attempts accordingly. For the first time in years, we felt hopeful. Then something terrible happened. Davis was working night shifts at a warehouse back then. His brother Mike would often pick him up because we only had one car. One April night, while Davis was at work, someone broke into our home. I was alone, watching TV in our bedroom, when I heard glass shattering downstairs. Before I could call 911, a masked man entered our bedroom. He had a knife. What happened next is something I've tried to forget for years. The man robbed our home but also attacked me. He sexually assaulted me. After he left, I called 911. The police came, took my statement, and I was taken to the hospital. The nurse gave me emergency contraception. I took it, even though I knew it might interfere with my fertility medication and our plans to conceive. I had no other choice. The police never caught the man. The case was closed, and I tried to move on with my life. 3 months after the attack, I began feeling sick every morning. I lost my appetite and felt depressed all the time. I thought it was trauma-related depression. Davis suggested I take a pregnancy test just in case. I did, not expecting anything, but when 2 lines appeared, we thought the fertility medications had finally worked. At my first doctor's appointment, the doctor did an ultrasound and told me I was 15 weeks pregnant, not 8 weeks as we had calculated based on when we thought conception had occurred. The timing matched exactly with the attack. I had experienced some irregular bleeding after taking the emergency contraception, which I mistook for a period, throwing off our timeline. Davis and I had a long and difficult conversation that night. I offered to terminate the pregnancy, but neither of us wanted that. We had seen our baby on the ultrasound screen. It was our child, no matter how conception had occurred. We made a pact. We would raise this child as our own. Davis said he didn't care about biology. He would be the baby's father in every way that mattered. We decided not to do a paternity test. We would tell our child the truth when they were older, and they could decide if they wanted to know more. 9 months later, Angie was born. She was perfect. Davis cut the umbilical cord and held her first. No one could have loved her more. A year later, I became pregnant with Jack quickly and easily, which reinforced our hope that Angie might actually be Davis's biological daughter despite the timing. Sammy came 7 years after Jack. 2 years ago, the police called. They had caught the man who attacked me. His DNA matched evidence from several unsolved cases, including mine. Last year, he was finally convicted. I gave a victim impact statement at the hearing. Davis came with me to support me. Our older children knew I had been attacked before Angie was born but didn't know all the details or that the assault might be related to Angie's conception. The man received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The trial concluded with limited information made public. Davis and I thought we could finally put all of this behind us. The night after the sentencing, Davis drank more than usual and told his brother Mike some details of the case that he hadn't shared before. Mike apparently told his wife about the conversation, and Karen, Davis's mother, overheard some of it. She knew about the break-in and that I had been attacked but didn't know it had been a sexual assault. Based on what she heard, Karen concluded that I must have cheated on Davis. Last Christmas, Karen gave Angie a 23andMe DNA test kit. None of the other kids received one, only Angie. I thought it was odd but didn't give it much importance. Angie was confused by the gift and offered it to me, since I'm adopted and had mentioned wanting to know my genetic background. I gave Angie an Amazon gift card of the same value. In the months after Christmas, I noticed Karen making strange comments about Angie's appearance. She would ask things like where Angie got her eye color from or why she was so tall and slim when neither Davis nor I had that body type. Angie is about 5 feet 11 inches and athletic, while Davis and I are average height and stockier. Our younger children resemble Davis more. Angie also noticed the comments and asked me why her grandmother was being so critical lately. I asked Karen about it, but she said it was nothing, just grandmother stuff. 2 nights ago, Karen invited Davis and me over for dinner. She specifically asked that we leave the kids at home because she had something important to discuss. We went, expecting it might be a health issue or something about her will. During dinner, Karen handed each of us an envelope. Inside were the results of a DNA comparison. When I asked what they were, Karen looked at me with hatred and told me I was trash, that she had always suspected. She had compared Davis's DNA to Angie's. The results showed no paternal match. Davis looked devastated. I called Karen an insensitive witch and we left immediately. I blocked her number on my phone and left it up to Davis if he wanted to do the same. The next day, Karen called Davis. He went to her house after work. She tried to justify her actions by saying she had overheard Mike talking about Davis's doubts and assumed I had cheated on him. She urged him to leave me. Davis told her she had no right to interfere in our lives that way and that he would cut contact with her. To counter her narrative that I had cheated, Davis revealed the whole truth. I had been sexually assaulted, and that might have been how Angie was conceived. Karen tried to apologize after learning the truth, but Davis refused to accept it. He told her not to contact us again. Davis came home that night upset and hurt. He said he had always known there was a possibility Angie was not biologically his, but he preferred not to confirm it. What hurt him most was that his own mother had gone behind our backs, tested our daughter without consent, and revealed it in the cruelest way possible. I called my siblings to tell them what happened and that we would no longer have contact with Karen. Most of them fully supported our decision. 2 of my 7 siblings, along with Mike, said that even though Karen's methods were wrong, they could understand why she acted the way she did, thinking I had cheated. I disagreed. Nothing justified what Karen did. Now we faced the hardest part, telling Angie the truth. We've all been in therapy since Karen's attack. Davis and I see therapists individually, and the kids attend sessions periodically. I scheduled an emergency family therapy session to help us tell Angie. I hated that we had to do it now, on Karen's timeline, instead of when Angie was older and ready to hear it. Angie took the news better than I expected. She said she wasn't upset that we hadn't told her, but she was bothered that the information was forced on her before she was ready to know. Davis thanked me for sharing such a painful part of my past. Our relationship hasn't changed, if anything, she and Davis have grown closer. She has been spending more time with him, going fishing and working together on his old car, things they both enjoy. We also told Jack the full story. Sammy only knows that Angie has a different biological father. Karen had obtained the DNA samples from items left at her house during the kids' sleepovers, like toothbrushes and hairbrushes. Angie never voluntarily provided a sample. Because of Karen's unreliable method, Davis and I decided to do an official DNA test. The results confirmed what Karen had found: Davis is not Angie's biological father. Angie is our daughter. She was conceived through violence but raised with love. Davis has been her father in every meaningful way since before she was born. We are getting through this together as a family. We maintain no contact with Karen. Some wounds heal, but others leave scars that remind us of what we've survived. Update 1. It has been 3 weeks since I posted about my mother-in-law revealing the DNA test results. A lot has happened, and I wanted to update everyone who offered their support and advice. The day after my post, Karen showed up at our house unannounced. Davis was at work, and I was home with Sammy. Angie and Jack were at school. I saw her car pull into the driveway. I told Sammy to go play in her room and not come down until I called her. Karen knocked on the door holding a large gift basket. I opened the door but stood firm in the doorway, blocking her from coming in. She tried to give me the basket, saying she wanted to apologize in person. The basket had expensive chocolates, wine, and a card. I refused to accept it. Karen started crying, saying she had made a terrible mistake and wanted to make amends. Davis assured me she never meant to hurt Angie or destroy our family, she just wanted to protect her son from being deceived. I told her that her actions showed exactly who she was, someone who cared more about biology than the 17 years Davis had spent raising and loving Angie, someone who would violate our family's privacy and trust, someone who would call me trash in front of my husband. Karen tried to explain that she hadn't known about the sexual assault and thought it had just been a robbery. If she had known, she would never have done what she did. She begged me to let her see her grandchildren, especially now that Angie needed all the family support she could get. That comment enraged me. Angie didn't need family support, as if there was something wrong with her. She needed protection from people who would hurt her, like Karen had. I told Karen to leave and not come back. As Karen walked back to her car, Angie arrived home from school. Angie froze when she saw her grandmother. Karen rushed toward Angie with her arms outstretched. I stepped between them and told Angie to go inside. Angie glared at Karen with hatred in her eyes before walking away without saying a word. Karen called after her, begging for forgiveness and telling her she loved her no matter what. Angie didn't look back. That night, Angie told us that Karen had been texting her all day asking to talk. Angie had ignored the messages but felt uncomfortable. We helped Angie block Karen's number and reported the situation to Angie's therapist. 2 days later, Mike called Davis. Mike said Karen was devastated and that our refusal to let her apologize was cruel. Davis told Mike that Karen had forfeited the right to be part of our lives when she decided to interfere in such a destructive way. Mike revealed something disturbing. Karen had not only tested Angie's DNA against Davis's, she had somehow obtained samples from all 3 children and had them tested. Jack and Sammy's tests confirmed Davis was their father. Karen had planned to use this information to convince Davis that I had cheated specifically regarding Angie while being faithful for the other pregnancies. This information made Davis even angrier. Karen had violated not only Angie's privacy but also the privacy of all our children. A week after Karen's visit, Angie came home from school upset. Several classmates were treating her differently. One girl asked if Angie was the product of rape and if that made her half-criminal. Angie was devastated. We found out that Karen had told her church prayer group about Angie's true paternity, supposedly asking for prayers for our family during this difficult time of revelation. Someone from the group had a daughter at Angie's school, and the information spread. Davis called Karen that night. It was the only time I've ever heard him yell. He told her she had betrayed Angie in the worst possible way by spreading private information that wasn't hers to share. He warned her that if she ever tried to contact any member of our family again, we would seek a restraining order. Karen's response was to send a mass email to family members, including my siblings, claiming Davis and I were punishing her for telling the truth and keeping her away from her grandchildren. She painted herself as a victim and suggested that my instability due to my traumatic past was causing Davis to turn against his own mother. Most family members ignored the email or responded privately to tell Karen she had crossed a line. But my sister-in-law Beth, married to my brother, forwarded me the email with a note suggesting we were being too harsh on Karen. Beth said Karen was elderly and had made a mistake out of love for her son. I replied to Beth with a detailed account of exactly what Karen had done. I asked Beth how she would feel if someone did that to her daughter. Beth apologized and said she hadn't known the full story. Today Davis and I decided to meet with Angie's school counselor and principal. We explained the situation in general terms, that private family information had been shared without our consent and that it was leading to harassment. The school was very supportive and addressed the issue immediately, speaking with the students involved and having the school counselor regularly check in with Angie. Angie has been incredibly resilient through all of this. She told me that learning about her biological origins answered some questions she had about herself, why she was so tall when the rest of us weren't, and why her eyes were a different color. She said it didn't change how she felt about Davis, he was still her dad. But she admitted to being curious about her biological history from a medical standpoint. Davis and I discussed it and decided to have Angie undergo a proper health genetic analysis. The results showed she has a slightly elevated risk for certain conditions that aren't present in either of our families. This information will be useful for her future medical care, so at least something positive came from this situation. Meanwhile, Davis has been struggling. He puts on a brave face for the kids, but I've heard him crying in the shower. One night he asked me if I had ever wondered what our life would have been like if the assault had never happened. I told him I didn't allow myself to think about that because it would mean a life without Angie, and I couldn't imagine that. Davis nodded and said, "She's my daughter. DNA doesn't change that. But I hate that man, the one who hurt you. And I hate that my mother made Angie feel like she doesn't belong in our family." We take it day by day. The kids seem to be adjusting. Angie and Davis went camping last weekend, something they've done together since she was little. Jack has been protective of Angie at school, and Sammy, who doesn't fully understand the situation, has been asking fewer questions. As our home slowly returns to a sense of normalcy, Karen keeps trying to contact us through different family members, but we've stood firm in our decision to keep her out of our lives. Some days are harder than others, but we're getting through this together. Update 2. About 3 weeks after my last post, we received a letter from an attorney representing Karen. The letter demanded grandparent visitation rights with all 3 children, claiming that our sudden termination of Karen's relationship with her grandchildren was causing them harm. Davis and I consulted a family law attorney. She informed us that in our state, grandparents can petition for visitation rights under certain circumstances, but they must prove that loss of contact with the grandparent would cause harm to the child's well-being. The attorney advised us to document all of Karen's harmful actions, including the unauthorized DNA testing and disclosure of private information that led to Angie being harassed. The situation got even more complicated when we discovered that Karen had been contacting Angie through a school friend's phone. Angie hadn't told us because she didn't want to make things worse. Karen had been telling Angie that Davis and I were being unfair, that she had a right to see her granddaughter, and that Angie should convince us to allow her back into our lives. Angie finally showed us the messages after Karen suggested meeting in secret at a mall. Angie felt uncomfortable with the idea but guilty about the situation. We reassured Angie that she had done nothing wrong and that Karen's behavior was inappropriate. We arranged another meeting with the school to explain the new development. They were very supportive and helped ensure students knew they were not to pass messages or phones to Angie on behalf of her grandmother. Then something unexpected happened. Mike, Davis's brother, came to our house one night. He asked to speak with Davis and me privately. Once we were alone, Mike broke down. He apologized for his role in the situation, admitting that he had helped Karen obtain the DNA samples. Karen had convinced him that she only wanted to confirm that Davis was the father of all 3 children to put her mind at ease after overhearing Davis talk in his sleep. Mike said he never imagined Karen would reveal the results the way she did. He thought that if the test showed Davis wasn't Angie's father, Karen would first discuss it privately with Davis. Mike had been consumed with guilt since everything happened. Davis was furious with his brother and asked how Mike could betray our trust that way. Mike didn't have a good answer except that his mother had always known how to manipulate him, and he had always sought her approval despite his anger. Davis told Mike he appreciated his honesty. Mike offered to sign a statement about Karen's actions for our attorney, which could help our case if Karen pursued legal action for grandparent visitation rights. A week later, we were notified that Karen had formally filed a petition for grandparent visitation rights. Our lawyer advised us that the case was weak, but we would still have to appear in court. The hearing was scheduled for a month later. During that time, Karen escalated her campaign to paint herself as a victim. She contacted more family members and friends, telling them we were keeping her from her grandchildren over an honest mistake. She claimed she was only trying to protect her son from a wife who had lied to him for years. The day before the court hearing, we received a surprising phone call. It was Karen's pastor. He introduced himself and explained that Karen had been sharing her version of events with the church community. However, after hearing rumors that Angie was being bullied due to information traced back to their prayer group, he became concerned. The pastor called to apologize for the role his congregation may have played in spreading harmful information. He also mentioned that after speaking at length with Karen, he was concerned about her inability to recognize the harm she had caused. He offered to be a character witness for us if needed, saying that while he tried to support all members of his congregation, he could not condone actions that harmed innocent children. We thanked him but said we hoped it wouldn't be necessary to involve him. The court hearing was brief. Karen showed up with her own attorney, who argued that she had had a loving relationship with her grandchildren for years before we abruptly cut off contact. Karen testified that she had made a mistake out of concern for her son but that her intentions were good. When our attorney presented evidence of Karen's actions, the judge's expression grew increasingly serious. Angie had written a statement that was submitted to the court. She stated that although she had loved her grandmother, she now felt betrayed and unsafe around her. She described how Karen's actions had led to bullying and how Karen had tried to manipulate her into secret meetings. The judge ruled against Karen's petition, stating that her actions showed disregard for the children's well-being. The judge issued a temporary restraining order preventing Karen from contacting any of us for 6 months, after which the situation would be re-evaluated. Karen broke down in the courtroom and as we left, she screamed at Davis, asking how he could do this to his own mother. Davis did not respond. Outside the courthouse, Mike was waiting for us. Davis told Mike to make sure Karen understood that if she continued spreading lies or attempted to contact us, we would pursue more permanent legal action. That night, Davis and I talked about how the situation had affected our family. Despite the stress and pain, we agreed that in some ways it had brought us closer. The bond between Angie and Davis had grown stronger, as she had shown a maturity beyond her years in supporting her sister. Even Sammy seemed to understand in her 8-year-old way that family is about love and protection, not just biology. Davis admitted something he had kept to himself for years. He had occasionally wondered about Angie's paternity but had pushed those thoughts away. The DNA results, though shocking in how they were revealed, also brought an odd sense of clarity. The lingering question had been answered. Angie was not biologically his daughter, but that did not change how he felt about her. If anything, it made their relationship even more special because it was chosen, not dictated by genetics. We are still healing, but every day is a little easier. Angie's school situation has improved. The bullying stopped after the school's intervention, and Angie has found support among her true friends, who don't care about her origins. As for Karen, we have not heard from her directly since the court hearing. Mike tells us she remains upset but seems to finally understand that her actions have consequences. Whether our relationship with her can ever be repaired remains to be seen. For now, we are focusing on healing our family. Update 3. It has been 6 months since my last update, and I know people want to know about our situation, especially with the restraining order. The temporary restraining order expired last month. In the days leading up to its expiration, Davis and I discussed what to do next. We decided not to file for an extension unless Karen tried to contact us again. So far, it has been quiet during this time. And we saw no reason to request another. 2 weeks after the order expired, we received a letter from Karen. This time it wasn't from an attorney, just a regular envelope in her handwriting. Inside was a handwritten letter addressed to both of us. Unlike her previous attempts to contact us, this letter contained no justifications or excuses. Karen acknowledged that what she had done was wrong on every level. She wrote that she had been seeing a therapist since the court hearing, which had helped her recognize her controlling behavior and lack of boundaries. Karen wrote that while she hoped we might allow her back into our lives someday, she understood if that never happened. She said she would respect our decision either way. The most significant part of the letter was addressed to Angie. Karen asked if we could pass along her apology to Angie. She took full responsibility for the pain she had caused and acknowledged that she had betrayed Angie's trust in an unforgivable way. Davis and I discussed the letter for several days before deciding how to respond. We agreed to show the letter to Angie and let her decide if she wanted any contact with her grandmother. Angie read the letter carefully and didn't say anything for a while after reading it. Then she asked if Karen was really going to therapy or if this was just another attempt to manipulate us. It was a fair question, and we had no answer. Angie decided she was not ready to have Karen back in her life. She said maybe someday, but not now. She asked if I could write a response to Karen, thanking her for the apology but explaining that she needed more time and space. I wrote the letter as Angie asked. We mailed it a week ago and have not received a response from Karen. Meanwhile, our family has settled into a new normal. Angie is set to graduate high school in a few months and has been accepted into several universities. She's excited to study biology, an interest that partly developed from learning about her genetic origins. Davis and Angie completed a long-standing project they had worked on for years, restoring an old motorcycle. They rode it for the first time last weekend, with Angie driving and Davis riding on the back. Watching them come home, laughing and talking about the ride, reinforced what we already knew: their bond has nothing to do with DNA. Jack has become more outspoken in protecting our family. When a distant relative made an insensitive comment about the situation at a recent family gathering, Jack calmly told them that his sister's origins were nobody's business and that their family was off-limits to gossip. Sammy, now 9 years old, has stopped asking questions about why we no longer see Grandma Karen. She has accepted our explanation that sometimes adults make mistakes that can't be easily fixed. Mike and Davis have slowly rebuilt their relationship. Mike has made an effort to show loyalty to us and not to Karen, even refusing to attend family events where Karen planned to discuss our situation. He admits he still sees his mother occasionally but does not talk about us with her. As for me, I've started volunteering at a support center for survivors of assault. The DNA revelation forced me to confront aspects of my trauma I had set aside for years. Working with others who understand has been healing in ways I didn't expect. Davis and I celebrated our 24th wedding anniversary last month. We didn't do anything fancy, just a dinner at home with the kids. After the kids went to bed, Davis gave me a card that said, "Thank you for our family." Simple words that meant everything. I don't know if we will ever have a relationship with Karen again. Maybe time will heal these wounds, or maybe some breaks can't be repaired. What matters is that our family, Davis, Angie, Jack, Sammy, and I, remains intact. We have weathered this storm together, and I believe we are stronger for it. Angie said something the other day that stayed with me. She said, "When people ask about my family, I tell them I have a mom and dad who chose me, a brother who stands up for me, and a little sister who looks up to me. That's what matters." After crying for a while at how beautiful that was, I could only think she was absolutely right. That's what matters. Update 4. I hope everyone is doing well. Our family is doing very well, though a few things have happened. First, Sammy now knows the story about her sister. After finally turning 10, we decided it was a good time to tell her. Angie has asked some questions but seems to understand. She also talked with Angie, and they had their own sister-to-sister conversation, which helped. Angie has been at college for a while now and seems determined to stick with biology as her major. As long as it makes her happy, we're happy for her. Now, the reason I'm writing again has to do with my mother-in-law. Who else could it be? Some time ago, while Angie was at college, Karen started harassing her again. Remember how Karen supposedly was going to therapy? Either it's not working, or it was a lie. Either way, both Angie and we had decided to continue with no contact with her. But she started harassing Angie through messages and then emails. When she saw that Angie wasn't responding to her messages, it was a new number because Angie had blocked the old one. She introduced herself as her grandmother in the first message, which was enough for Angie to block her again. In that first message, she said that now that Angie was away from our influence, they could reconnect and have a relationship again. But Angie recognized the manipulation and blocked her. It's possible she also called, but then the emails started arriving, and they were more of the same, saying things like, "Don't let your parents' manipulation keep affecting you," and similar comments. I don't know why she's so obsessed with Angie, but our best guesses are either that what Angie did triggered this behavior or simply that she can't do the same with her other grandchildren because she knows we would intervene. Angie has blocked her everywhere and hopes that will be the end of it. At least for the past 2 months, there have been no signs of her. We've spoken to the lawyer, but unless she does something else wrong, we can't request another restraining order just for that. There's still the possibility of suing her for the things she said about Angie that led to her being bullied at school, but as we did at the time, we spoke with Angie to get her opinion about suing, and she said no. She didn't want a lawsuit to make things bigger and have people keep talking about it. She wanted the issue to end as soon as possible, so we've respected her decision. As for Karen, fortunately, everyone has either kept their distance from her or kept her away from us. The only one who's had any contact so far is Davis, but only because he happened to run into her at a family event and didn't know she would be there. She told him she feels sad because her children don't speak to her and some of the family treats her like garbage. I don't think treating her like garbage is wrong if that's what she is. Davis thinks it's more manipulation, and together with what she did to Angie, we believe the same. She was even kicked out of one of those events because Davis didn't want to listen to her. and she was making everyone nervous. She has been uninvited from that house for future gatherings. We are still holding firm, especially Davis, in our decision to keep away from her. She hasn't shown any real remorse or that she has worked on herself. She's still just as manipulative, and as such, we don't feel any guilt that the family has distanced themselves from her. That would be all.